When the world goes quiet and the noise of the day finally fades, some stories begin to whisper. They're not fiction. They're real pieces of life left behind in someone's memory, told by voices that have learned to heal through words. This is Real Stories at Night, where every truth finds its calm and every silence has something to say. You're listening to Calm Mind Journal. The house was always awake before she was. The pipes groaned first, then the kettle, then her mother's voice calling someone's name that was never hers. Elena lay still under the thin blanket, listening to the choreography of another morning she didn't belong to. The smell of burnt toast drifted in through the half-open door, down the hall. Her father coughed the way old wood snaps in the fire, habitual, weary, final. In a family of 5, silence was still the loudest presence. Her sister, Violet, had already begun her daily performance, laughter too loud, compliments too sweet, her voice sugar-coated for the one audience that mattered, their parents. Every morning was a small competition Elena never signed up for, yet always lost. "Violet, you're glowing," her mother said, pride blooming where criticism usually lived. "Just moisturizer," Violet answered, pretending modesty. "Your husband will be lucky," her father added, his voice softer than it ever was with Elena. From her room, Elena stared at the ceiling and counted the seconds between each compliment. She learned that envy burns quieter than anger, but longer. She dressed quickly, jeans, a plain white blouse, hair tied back. In the mirror, she caught her reflection and almost didn't recognize herself. Her eyes looked older than 22. That's what happens, she thought, when you grow up being the apology no one ever asked for. Downstairs, breakfast waited, eggs half-cooked, bread cold, and conversation already poisoned. "You're late," her mother said without looking up. "I didn't sleep," Elena replied, always an excuse. "You think the world waits for you." Her father folded his newspaper. "Stop provoking her," he muttered. "She provokes herself," her mother shot back. Violet entered like sunlight that didn't belong in this house, bright, rehearsed, effortless. "Good morning," she sang, kissing their mother's cheek. Elena watched how affection passed around her, like a plate that never reached her end of the table. She sipped her coffee bitter, lukewarm, and said quietly, "I got the job." Silence. Her father looked up. "What job?" "The administrative assistant position at Cole Real Estate. Full-time." Her mother frowned. "Downtown." "That's 2 hours from here. I'll manage." "You think it's easy." A girl like you, no connections, no charm. I'll learn." Her mother laughed not loudly, but sharply enough to cut. "You'll quit in a month," Violet chimed in softly. "Mom, maybe she'll surprise you." But the tone wasn't defense. It was pity disguised as kindness. Elena stood, her chair scraping the floor. "I already did," she said, leaving the table behind her. Her mother called out, "Don't forget appearances matter more than effort." It wasn't advice. It was prophecy. The bus that morning was late. It always was. She stood by the road, clutching her worn leather bag, watching cars pass like options she didn't have. She wasn't running away, not yet, but she was rehearsing for it. When the bus finally came, she sat near the window and watched the town shrink into a blur of red rooftops and forgotten arguments. The fields rolled by, vast and indifferent. Her phone buzzed. A message from Violet Mom's still mad. "But she'll calm down. You know how she is." Elena typed, "Yeah, I know," then deleted it. Some truths didn't need sending. At the office, the world felt different. The glass walls, the clean scent of ambition, the click of heels on marble. It was another kind of battlefield, but at least here, the wounds came with paychecks. Her supervisor, Annabelle, greeted her with a smile that felt pre-approved. "Welcome, Elena. You're starting under Mr. Cole's division. He's particular." "I'll be careful," Elena said. Annabelle leaned in slightly. "Careful is good. Invisible is better." She led her to a corner desk overlooking downtown Austin. From there, Elena could see people who looked like they knew where they were going. That was the first lie of cities everyone was lost, but the confident ones got promoted. By noon, she'd memorized the rhythm of the office phones ringing like alarms for other people's mistakes, coffee orders delivered with silent hierarchies. The way Mr. Cole's door opened and closed without ever revealing who he really was. She saw him once that day, Adrian Cole, tall, composed, eyes like locked drawers. His presence made even the air fix its posture. He nodded slightly as he passed. She nodded back, unsure if she was supposed to. Annabelle whispered, "Don't stare too long. He notices everything." Elena smiled faintly. Maybe he's looking for people who notice back. Annabelle looked at her like she'd just broken an unspoken rule. No one notices Mr. Cole. They survive him. That night, Elena returned home to find her mother waiting at the doorway, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. "Why did you tell your aunt I mistreat you?" What Elena froze. She called this morning, Said you were crying about me again. I didn't. Don't lie. Her father looked up from the TV. Enough. She's tired. Let her answer. Her mother snapped. Ungrateful child. I carried you, fed you, and this is what I get. Violet appeared from the hallway, wearing concern like perfume. Please, stop shouting. But the shouting didn't stop. It never did. That night, in her small room, Elena packed a bag, not fully, not decisively, just enough to make herself believe escape was an option. The photo on her desk showed her, Violet, and their parents on a picnic years ago. She looked at her younger self, smiling, foolish, unaware of how families could fail quietly. She turned the photo face down. The next morning, everything broke. It began with a plate cheap ceramic, thrown in anger, then a slap, then words sharp enough to bleed. You think you're better than us? Her mother screamed. No, Elena said. I just think I deserve peace. Violet tried to intervene, but was too late. The plate had already shattered. The silence after was worse. Elena wiped her cheek, grabbed her bag, and said, I'm leaving. Her mother's voice followed her down the hall. If you walk out that door, don't come back. She didn't look back. Rain began as she reached the bus stop, heavy, sudden, cleansing. She stood under it, letting the water wash the heat from her skin. It felt almost like forgiveness. Headlights flared a car. Too close. Too fast. The brakes screamed. The world tilted. Then black. When she opened her eyes, everything was still. The scent of leather, antiseptic, and rain. She was in the passenger seat of a car. A man came down beside her, hands steady on the wheel. You're awake, he said, voice calm, detached. Elena blinked. Who Adrian Cole? He said simply. You stepped in front of my car. Her throat was dry. I didn't mean to. I assumed not. Where are we going? Somewhere dry. The windshield wipers kept time with her heartbeat. He brought her to a house modern, cold, and too big for one person. She sat on the edge of a couch that looked untouched. You should rest, he said. I can't. She replied, because of me, because of everything. He looked at her then, really looked. You live nearby. Not anymore. Something in her tone made him pause. Family trouble. She almost laughed. That's one word for it. He nodded slowly. I'll have Thomas drive you wherever you need. Who's Thomas? My driver. He worries about everything. You'll like him. I don't like people easily, she said softly. Good, he replied. Neither do I. That night, she couldn't sleep. She wandered the house. Its silence was heavier than her own. On a piano in the corner sat a framed photo of Adrian with another woman, elegant, poised, older, Annabelle. Elena traced the glass with her fingertip. So even loneliness has company, she whispered. Outside, thunder rolled, distant, patient, inevitable. Morning arrived quietly, like it was afraid of breaking something fragile. Elena woke to the sound of rain easing off the glass. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was until she saw the gray walls, the minimalist furniture, the faint smell of cedar and expensive isolation. Adrian Cole's house, the man who had nearly hit her, or saved her. She wasn't sure which. She found a folded blanket over her legs and a note on the coffee table. Breakfast is in the kitchen. Thomas will drive you when you're ready. A. C. No apologies. No sentiment, just precision. Even his handwriting looked like architecture. In the kitchen, she met Thomas, a man in his 60s with kind eyes and the patient silence of someone who'd seen every kind of mess and learned not to comment on it. Mr. Cole asked me to make sure you eat, he said. He's at the office. Elena hesitated. I don't want to be a burden. You're not. He replied simply, then added with a faint smile, Not yet. She almost laughed. The eggs were perfectly cooked, the coffee strong. For a brief, borrowed moment, she felt safe, and that frightened her more than anything. By noon, Thomas drove her back toward the city. The sky had cleared, but the roads were still wet, shimmering, like they were trying to remember the storm. She looked out the window. Do you work for him long 20 years? Thomas said. So you must know him well. Know him. He smiled faintly. That depends what you mean by know. Mr. Cole isn't a man. People know. He's a man people work for. Elena nodded. Then who works with him? Thomas glanced at her in the rearview mirror. No one stays long enough to try. She asked to be dropped off near downtown, pretending she had an appointment. When the car pulled away, she stood alone by the sidewalk, clutching her bag like an anchor. The city pulsed around her horns. Footsteps, ambition. It was loud enough to hide 1,000 heartbreaks. She walked aimlessly until she found herself in front of a familiar building. Cole Real Estate. Fate, she thought, has a cruel sense of humor. Inside, the receptionist blinked in surprise. Can I help you? Elena straightened her blouse. I'm here for an interview. For which position? She hesitated. assistant. To whom? Another pause. Mr. Daniel Cole. She didn't know why she said that. Maybe because the name Adrian still scared her. Daniel Cole turned out to be the opposite of his brother. Warm, unguarded, a man who smiled like he believed in second chances. He looked at her resume, or rather, the empty page she tried to make look like one. "You're honest," he said, amused. "That's rare here. I'm not sure if it's a strength." She replied, "It will be. I'll have HR process you. Welcome aboard." Just like that. She was hired, and just like that. She was once again under the roof of the man she'd hoped never to see again. Her first day was a quiet kind of nightmare. Every time the elevator opened, she feared it would be him. Every time footsteps echoed down the hall, she braced herself for recognition. When it finally happened, it was ordinary, painfully so. Adrian stepped out of his office, scanning a document, not looking up until she spoke. "Mr. Cole?" He froze, looked up. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in calculation, like he was deciding whether the universe was playing a joke on him. "You," he said evenly. "Me," she replied. "This city isn't small enough for coincidence. I didn't plan it." He handed her the file. "Then make it worth the inconvenience." Days turned into weeks. She worked quietly, efficiently. The office began to forget her as quickly as it had noticed her, which, in a place like this, was a kind of victory. Annabelle still floated through corridors like a perfume of influence, beautiful, practiced, untouchable. She always smiled when she saw Elena, the way a cat smiles at a bird. "Mr. Cole seems invested in you," Annabelle remarked one afternoon. "He's my boss." Elena said, "He's everyone's boss, but not everyone gets to survive his attention." Elena looked up. "Then I guess I'll have to." At night, she stayed late. The city lights reflected on the glass walls, turning the office into a mirror maze. Sometimes Adrian worked late too. Their conversations were rare, clipped, yet charged with something neither would name. "You don't talk much," he said one evening. "You don't either," she countered. "I don't need to. Maybe you should." He looked at her, really looked. "Talking doesn't change what's broken. Neither does silence," she replied. He said nothing after that, but the air between them changed like two storms circling the same sky. One night, Thomas found her outside, waiting for the bus. "You shouldn't be here this late," he said. "I'm fine." He frowned. "That's what people say before they aren't." She smiled faintly. You sound like you've said that before. I have. To him, years ago. He didn't explain further. He didn't need to. When she reached her apartment, a small, peeling room above a bakery, she found her phone buzzing with missed calls. Mother. For a moment, she almost answered. Almost. But old wounds don't heal by reopening them. The next morning, she arrived at work to find Adrian in the lobby, arguing with someone her mother. Elena froze. Her mother's voice, sharp and self-righteous, cut through the hall. You think you can steal my daughter from her family? She hasn't called once since she met your people. Adrian turned, eyes cold. Your daughter works here. She earns her life herself. She's a child. She's 22. Her mother's hand lifted the gesture instinctive, familiar, before it could land. Adrian caught her wrist midair. His voice dropped low, lethal. You call yourself her mother. A mother doesn't raise her hand to a child she's already broken. The hall fell silent. Elena's breath trembled. Her mother stared at Adrian, then at her, before storming off. For the first time, Elena didn't feel small. She felt seen. That night, she sat in the company parking lot long after everyone had gone. Rain began again, soft, deliberate. Thomas appeared with an umbrella. You'll catch a cold. I'm fine, she said. You always say that. She looked at him and smiled weakly. Maybe I'll start meaning it. He chuckled. If you stay near Mr. Cole long enough, you might. Why's that? Because he has a habit of breaking things and then teaching them how to stand again. She didn't know whether to thank him or run. In Adrian's office, the lights were still on. He stood by the window, staring at the rain, the reflection of himself dissolving in the glass. Behind him, on his desk, lay a forgotten umbrella hers. He picked it up, turning it in his hands. Some storms, he murmured, don't come to drown you. They come to make you walk faster. Outside, the city hummed restless, alive, waiting for what came next. The elevator doors closed on the last echo of Elena's mother's footsteps, and the building inhaled again. Offices do that breathe in scandal, breathe out policy. By morning, the incident had softened into rumor. Celia relayed it like traffic unavoidable, mildly annoying. Not her fault. Annabelle relayed nothing at all. Silence, in the right hands, can be a luxury brand. Elena arrived early. Habit, defense, devotion to beginnings. She straightened the reception flowers because no one else would. Wiped a coffee ring from the marble because everyone else assumed marble forgave. She liked the small labors that bit into chaos and left tooth marks. Daniel found her there, sleeves rolled, optimism intact. "You're hard to startle," he said, amused. "I used to be," she answered. He glanced at her, reading only what she allowed. "You're under my wing this quarter. Portfolio prep, investor briefs, audits that eat weekends." He smiled. "I bring snacks." "Snacks sound honest," she said. "Let's do it," from his glassed-in corner. Adrian observed the small exchange with the detached attention of a man who hated notes but heard everything. He turned away when Elena looked up, as if he had no interest in confirming gravity. The weeks organized themselves the way rain organizes gutters. Elena wrote memos no one corrected, drafts no one improved, emails that said exactly as much as they needed to, and learned how not to apologize for arriving after midnight. Daniel liked to brainstorm standing, palms flat on the table as if warming the wood. "Sell me a story," he would say, "not a lie. A narrative that tells the truth from an angle humans can stand." She obliged. "We don't lead with returns," she said one afternoon. "We lead with retention. We're not hunting, we're keeping. We build places people don't want to leave." Daniel's grin was boyish and undeserved. "Perfect. My father wouldn't have liked it. Which is how I know it's good." "Your father?" Elena asked. "Careful. Our father," he corrected softly, and for a second the word failed to fit. "He built the scaffolding. Adrian poured the concrete. I'm here to put a window somewhere it matters." "Where does it matter?" Elena asked. Daniel pointed toward the street, a mosaic of bus stops and briefcases and mouths that learned to swallow objections. "Down there," he said, "make us look like we remember that." Annabelle's office smelled like citrus and caution. She summoned Elena with a message that read like a summons. "Close the door," she said without looking up. Elena did. Annabelle kept turning pages, contracts, notations, a photo torn with surgical indifference. "I've been here long enough to know the tempo." Annabelle began. Tempo is how men confuse decisiveness with care. They move fast. They call it necessary. She glanced up. "You're new enough not to have learned the choreography." "I'm learning," Elena said. "Good. Lesson 1. Mr. Cole doesn't keep people. He keeps functions. If you want to last, become irreplaceable at something no one else wants to do." Elena thought of midnight decks, thorny Q&As, the dirty dishes of corporate narrative, like absorbing blame. She said. Annabelle's smile didn't touch her eyes, like anticipating trouble, preferably before it puts on a suit. She closed a file. "Security sent me a report from yesterday. Your family, the lobby." His intervention, She opened a drawer, set a small rectangle on the desk, a key card, unlabeled, private lounge, piano. He'll pretend it was his idea to give you access. We will let him. I didn't ask for favors. Elena said, I know. Annabelle replied, that's why you're getting one. Elena met her gaze. Why help me? Annabelle's eyes flicked toward the glass, where the city rehearsed regret. Because I recognize women who learn to look harmless to stay alive. A beat. And because men like him read gratitude better than rebellion, I'm not grateful, Elena said. Not yet, Annabelle answered, but you'll perform it. And one day, if you survive your performance, you'll become something more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to prove. Elena took the key card. It felt suspect and heavy at once. What do you want? Annabelle. An exit, Annabelle said, the kind that looks like choice. Nights stretched. Daniel's enthusiasm kept the team vertical. Elena's drafts gave it spine. She learned the dimensions of the building's night noises, the HVAC sigh at 10:12, the cleaning crew's hymn of vacuums, the elevator's bedtime groan. Adrian's light stayed on longer than the rest, a portrait of endurance people misnamed work ethic. Sometimes Elena heard the piano in the lounge hesitant. Correct. Lonely. One Thursday, she found him there, sleeves rolled, tie surrendered. He gestured wordlessly to the bench. She sat. They played the truce that music affords people who don't trust words. He missed a note. She did not correct him. She missed the next. He did not look up after. He said, You're responsible for tomorrow's pre-read. I know. She said, It's already on your desk. He considered that. You're always early. No. Elena answered, I'm just on time to conversations that usually start without women. He almost smiled. Don't be late tomorrow. I never am, she said, and left before he remembered to put the armor back on. The pre-read landed like a small, precise grenade. It proposed a pivot of strategy away from raw expansions toward pipeline patience, partnerships that actually read the fine print before lunch. The board had the decency to hate it honestly. An older man with the posture of a campaign promise frowned. This, caution, won't excite our investors. Adrian's voice was calm steel. I hire people who excite you. I run the company to survive you. Another director studied the graphs as if they concealed a trap. Who wrote this comms? Adrian said. Names. He paused. Elena. The name fell into the room like a fact issued by weather. Faces turned. Some measured. Some dismissed. Some learned it gently and filed it under temporary talent. Annabelle watched him. interested in the way a chemist is interested in reactions. Daniel glanced at Elena from across the table and mouthed, "Nice shot." In the hallway where victories are priced before celebration, Adrian said without preface, "You're promoted." Elena blinked. "You just made that up. Titles are inventory," he said. "You've been doing the job. We're labeling the shelf." "What's the shelf?" she asked. "Senior comms, strategy and speech, and the pay adjusted." She held his gaze. "Upward, I presume. Drastically," he said. And the mouth of a man who did not know jokes nearly formed one. "Then thank you," she said, "but I won't carry your secrets as part of the compensation." "Good," he replied. "I don't want you to. I want you to make them unnecessary." With the new title came new corridors. The inner rooms where deals wore their pajamas. The green room behind press conferences where sincerity was airbrushed onto strategy. Elena learned to stand in the vicinity of power without borrowing its bad habits. She also learned there are economies inside economies, the trades of patience for position, tenderness for access, cynicism for safety. She learned to stop paying with parts of herself she could not afford to lose. At home, she replaced the single thin blanket with two and allowed the word comfortable to enter a room it had never visited. Violet called more. Their father called rarely, which was how he said, "I miss you," without using any of the words. "Do you like it there?" Violet asked one night. "I like what I'm becoming there," Elena said. "Is that the same thing?" "Not always," Elena answered. "But this time, maybe." One afternoon, Annabelle closed her door and turned on the TV without sound. A news ticker crawled with rumors that smelled like gasoline, a regulatory inquiry, a ghost from a file cabinet with a memory. "Stay ahead of this," she said, tossing a folder onto the table. "Our acquisitions in Tacoma. Someone wants to rename them misrepresentations." Elena scanned. Legacy paperwork, bad signatures, good excuses. "Write me a story," Annabelle said, "one that is true enough to survive testimony." Elena wrote it a narrative of due diligence that had the courage to admit what diligence had missed. Clean language, no perfume, no fog. She put her own name on the draft and sent it to legal. Annabelle lifted a brow. "Brave, necessary," Elena said. "You think truth protects you," Annabelle said. "Not unkindly. It doesn't. It only keeps you company when you lose." "Then I want good company," Elena answered. Annabelle looked almost amused. "Careful. Integrity is habit forming." It was Daniel who suggested the offsite, a small retreat at a lakeside property, to bleed the stress from a team that had mistaken cortisol for culture. "We'll grill," he promised. "We'll do trust fall exercises without the falling." Adrian permitted it the way a storm permits umbrellas not opposed. Unconvinced, he arrived late, left his phone in his pocket for an entire 7 minutes, then took it back out like a confession. The afternoon walked itself into evening. Laughter created truce. People who had only ever seen each other in fluorescent lighting discovered they were not only their job titles. Someone told a story about his mother's cooking. Someone else admitted she had never learned to swim. Elena sat at the edge of the deck and watched the lake keep secrets. Adrian found her there. "You don't swim," he observed. "I do," she said. "Just not at work." He stood beside her, tie off, human visible. "I approved the foundation paperwork," he said casually. "Third wash." She exhaled. "Thank you." "Don't thank me," he said. Daniel pushed it. "I merely didn't push back." "That's leadership," she teased. "That's exhaustion," he said. And they let the night fold around them. When the first star admitted to being visible, he asked quietly, "Do you still hate me?" She considered the question like a coin she might refuse. "I don't know you enough to hate you. And yet," he said, "and yet," she echoed. "Annabelle says you're dangerous." "She would know," Elena replied. He nodded, almost smiling. "Be careful." "I am," she said. "Careful used to be my prison. Now it's my instrument." He looked out at the lake. "The inquiry will escalate. I assumed people will misname you." "I've been mislabeled my whole life," she said. "It only hurts when you start answering to the wrong name." He looked back at her, something like respect uncoiling without permission. "Don't answer." Then, "Don't speak for me," she said gently. He laughed once, softly, fair. The water kept counsel. Somewhere behind them, Daniel burned the first batch of corn and declared it intentional. The company of shadows had decided, for one evening, not to demand anything. They merely stayed. The inquiry did escalate. Subpoenas travel faster than memos. Reporters discovered metaphors. The word fraud tried on different rooms to see where it fit. In the middle of it, Elena's mother left a voicemail that said only, "You see city people bite, too." Elena didn't call back. She did write statements, answers that weren't undignified. She refused to weaponize vagueness and refused to flatter certainty. She learned the art of the sentence that looked like surrender to people who wanted war and looked like backbone to people who had one. Adrian's voice grew quieter in meetings as the volume of crisis increased. It's what good leaders do when the building catches fire. They lower their tone until the alarm learns manners. There were nights he didn't go home. There were mornings he arrived looking like midnight hadn't forgiven him. There were afternoons when he stood at the window and did not pretend the view saved him. Once, on a Friday that had overstayed its welcome, he said to Elena in the hallway, "If I fall, you don't fall with me." "I won't," she said. He nodded, as if that answer counted as care. "Don't tell me to be careful," she added. "Just be worth the loyalty you didn't ask for." He met her eyes. "I'm trying." "Try louder," she said, and kept walking. One more thing happened before the breaking point announced its name. Violet came to the office, not as a storm, but as weather that had taken a class. She wore a dress she'd bought for herself, not for an occasion. Her smile was less audition, more presence. "I wanted to see where you live in the day," she said to Elena in the lobby, "where you become the version of you that doesn't shrink." Elena hugged her. They stood like that too long for corporate choreography. "Dad asked about you," Violet said. "He made soup. He always makes soup when he misses people." Elena smiled. "Bring him by the center Sunday. I'll play." Violet's eyes watered. "You'll play for us. I'll play for me." Elena corrected. "You can sit near." They laughed. It sounded like a door unlocking. Annabelle crossed the lobby then, took in the tableau two sisters. One repaired mid-conversation and said, "Families are messy on purpose. It's their way of ensuring you'll have something to do when you retire." Violet blinked. "You're beautiful," she blurted. "Terrible insurance policy." Annabelle replied, amused, "I recommend wit." Elena introduced them. They assessed each other like mirrors, deciding whether to be kind. "Be gentle with my sister." Elena said, "I don't do gentle." Annabelle said. Then, after a beat, "But I do efficient. A good therapist is worth 2 handbags." Violet laughed. "Deal." For a moment, in a lobby that had learned to host disasters, 3 women allowed grace to be the only policy. And then the elevator dinged, the doors opened, and the day demanded its sacrifices again. The subpoena came with its own weather. The building cooled 3 degrees. The whispers upgraded to declarations. HR began sentences out of an abundance of caution, which is corporate for lawyered to death. They wanted documents from a deal Adrian had inherited and allegedly sanctified. A signature that was both his and not his. A date that didn't care about intent. The story wrote itself for people who liked easy villains. At 10 a.m., legal assembled him in a room shaped like a question. He answered the first hour like a man who had made peace with accuracy. The second like a man who knew exactly how long truth could hold its breath. The third in silence. Elena prepared the internal FAQ that would keep employees from making up their own mythology. She asked for a quote from him. He sent none. She wrote one anyway. We don't defend what can't be defended. We correct what can be corrected, and we stand with the people who keep this company decent when the story outside wants a simpler plot. She attached his initials. He let them stay. By nightfall, the press had lined the sidewalk the way crows line telephone wires. Daniel paced. Annabelle glided. Thomas brought sandwiches and pretended not to overhear names he'd rather forget. Go home. Adrian told Elena at 11. No, she said. He looked at her. You think stubbornness is loyalty? I think presence is. His eyes warmed a fraction. Then sit. Don't talk. Don't fix me. Not my hobby, she said, taking the chair beside the couch in his office, where he had finally acquiesced to pretending to rest. They didn't speak for a while. The building dimmed to its night settings. The city performed insomnia. Do you ever wish you'd built something smaller? She asked at last. Yes, he said, every day. But I only know how to be responsible for too much. She watched him breathe. That's not responsibility. That's punishment. He considered that, then shrugged. I know the difference. I just don't practice it. Practice is available, she said. He glanced at her hands, ink-stained. Steady. You make it sound like music. It is. He almost slept. Play something. No piano, she said. Play anyway, he murmured. So she did with words, low and measured, telling him a story about a girl who broke into a community center to borrow a future, and a man who mistook competence for armor until he remembered the difference between protection and distance. He fell asleep halfway through the second paragraph, which is how she knew the story worked. She stayed until the building decided morning. She wrote replies he would sign later without correcting the verbs. She drafted an internal memo that began not with we, but with I, and placed it on his desk like an unopened umbrella. When he woke, he read it. He looked at her. If I send this, I may have to leave. If you don't, you won't be the one who should stay, she said. He nodded once. Then we send it. He pressed send. Sometimes the breaking point is a button. The memo detonated cleanly. Investors grumbled because grumbling pays dividends. The board convened because boards are allergic to daylight. Staff read and quietly, collectively decided to show up anyway. Midday. Adrian called a town hall and stood on a stage that made everyone look smaller unless they carried truth. He carried enough. We made errors, he said. Some were mine of speed, of trust, of believing our systems were better than the people running them. This company doesn't belong to a portfolio. It belongs to the people who keep each other honest. If the board decides my leaving helps that, I will go. If not, we will stay and do the slow work. He scanned the room. Pick the harder good with me. He did not look for Elena. He did not need to. Presence does its work without applause. After, in the corridor where relief and dread traded invoices, Annabelle approached with a thin smile. You just auditioned for martyrdom, auditioned for adulthood, he said. She tilted her head. I hear they don't pay well. I can afford it. He replied softly. She studied him. You've changed. No, he said. I've stopped pretending I didn't have to. Careful, she murmured. For once almost tender, integrity is habit forming. He smiled, faint, so I've heard. The board didn't fire him. Not yet. They put him on a leash called oversight and called it best practice. He didn't fight the leash. He made it look like a belt that fit. Elena went home that night and slept without dreaming. In the morning, Violet texted a photo their father at the community center, waiting by the piano with 2 cups of tea. The caption read, "Third wash today." She replied, "Yes, at noon." She took an early lunch and met them there. She played the piece that never forgave itself and then the one that did. Her father clapped like a man allowing joy in public for the first time. Violet cried the kind of tears that water something instead of drowning it. After, Elena sat between them and let her shoulders stop guarding her ears. Home felt like a verb she could finally conjugate. There was one more reckoning. Her mother's letter arrived in a plain envelope without a return address, which is another way to say cowardice with stamps. Elena almost threw it away. She didn't. She read it standing up, as if prepared for impact. It was not an apology. It was not a defense. It was a map of a childhood that had taught a woman only 2 prayers: be perfect and be less. At the end, one sentence strayed off script. I wanted you to live a life I couldn't survive. Elena put the letter in a drawer with the foundation papers and the piano ticket. She lit a candle and said aloud, to the empty room and the not-so-empty past, I forgive what you didn't know how to love. I keep what I needed you to love, and I give back the rest. The room learned a new quiet. On a Friday that deserved to end early, Daniel walked into Elena's office with 2 coffees and a grin that had graduated into something steadier. We survived the week, he said. That's culture. She laughed. That's weather. He raised his cup. To weather. Adrian appeared in the doorway, tie loose, humanity showing. We need to change the investor deck, he said. Lead with retention and put your name on the narrative. Mine, Elena blinked. Yes, he said simply. Return addresses matter. She considered it the risk, the dignity, the undignified thrill of finally signing something that had always sounded like her. All right. He nodded. Good. A beat. Play. Monday always, she said. He left. Daniel watched him go, then looked back at Elena. He's learning. So am I, she said. What's the lesson that loyalty isn't a contract? Elena answered, it's a practice, like music, like grace. Daniel smiled. We should write that into the values. Let's live it first, she said, closing her laptop. Night again. The city wore its jewelry. Elena stood at her window with lights off, the skyline turning her reflection into a chiaroscuro, steady half shadow, half possible. Her phone vibrated a message from an unknown number that wasn't unknown anymore. Rubato borrowed time, returned with interest. Thank you for the loan. A.C. She typed, play on time, tell the truth, rest between measures, dots. Then, working on it, she set the phone down. The kettle clicked off. The candle burned to a reasonable end. In her chest, something unclenched without needing to announce itself. Some stories end in reunions, some in indictments. This one ended in a series of small, brave adjustments, a man choosing honesty over theater, a company learning to breathe without holding its stomach in, a sister wearing her own name correctly, a father boiling water at the right time, and a woman who had practiced leaving long enough to realize she could also practice staying, but only where she wasn't asked to shrink. Elena opened the window. Night air entered like a friend who didn't require explanation. Home, she said into the dark, testing the sound. It stayed.